Welcome back to the channel. I've been away for a little while. I'm back. I hope you had a good holiday. So, quite a few things happened while I was away, and I'm quite sure you are well aware of some of the headlines that made the news over the holidays. Most important of which was the death of the king of football, Edson Arantes do Nascimento, otherwise known as the King Pele. Also, the World Cup in Qatar ended with Argentina becoming the new World Cup champion. So, gonna touch on talk about Pele for a couple of minutes, touch on the World Cup. But before I get into Pele, if you are new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and the notification bell for new content. So before I get into the discussion about Pele, I want you guys to join me and take a look at a video. This was an interview of Tim Vickery. Tim Vickery is a football writer who covers Brazil, and he was doing an interview on OTB Sports. And he had some interesting views on the death of Pele. So I want you to join me and take a look at this, and we'll talk about it after this interview. So let's go ahead and take a look.
Now, we'll never know for sure exactly who the greatest of all time was, but any shortlist will certainly always include the name Pele. I think John Giles might have put it best last night on the show when asked by Richie if he was the best, when he said, well, there was certainly never anybody better, which I think is a lovely way to put it. Delighted to be joined by Tim Vickery in Brazil. Tim, I know it's been a crazy 24 hours. You've been on the go constantly since this news broke, but you're very good to give some of your time off the ball today.
My pleasure. And what a subject we've got to talk about, because so much of this is a tribute to what we spend our time doing. We're talking here about someone who was born only 52 years after Brazil abolished slavery, and who leaves the scene acclaimed as the undisputed king of the global game, which is a tribute both to Pele and to the nature of football itself, in that it's democratic. You don't need money, you don't need sophisticated equipment. You just get out there, a boy or a girl with a dream. And how many now are following in Pele's footsteps? Yeah,
it's unbelievable. I might come back to that topic actually on slavery and Pele's blackness in a minute, but I suppose we can do the sort of deep dive into Pele's career and life another day, and when things have cooled down. And I suppose tonight, just want to focus on a couple of things, not least the reaction in Brazil, because we're hearing 3 days official mourning. That's on the scale of the Queen dying in the UK almost. This is. You talked to Joe when Pele was sick during the World Cup, when we were talking about Messi and everything, and you're saying, that there is a distance to Pele. You were saying it's 50 years since he's played, and it might not be that connection in relation to what Maradona and Argentina have. But I suppose what you've seen today, has it surprised you in any way how deep and visceral it's been?
No, it's less visceral than Argentina with Maradona.
Okay.
Because of that reason of connection. Maradona was such a spontaneous character. You know, he's there in the stadium. He takes his shirt off and he's swirling it round his head as he leads the chants, and he's carried away by the emotion of the moment. And he falls down and he gets up again, and he falls down and he gets up again, and that made him readily easy to identify with, as perhaps was the case in Brazil with Garrincha. You know, Pele and Garrincha played for Brazil together for 8 years, and they never lost a game. But Pele is a different kind of person, and this is in no way a criticism when I say he's more calculated. Because what I'm really saying is he's so much better at the administration of his own life. So that's a life skill, but it does mean that there's a certain distance. So there is absolutely no lack of love, reverence for Pele. And I found in one of the papers today, Estadão de São Paulo, from the state of São Paulo, where Pele lived and died. And the front cover is a picture there of it saying Pele has died if Pele can actually die. And you turn inside and you read the shout line, like the gods of Olympus, Pele doesn't get old or die. He will always be alive, marked in global memory as the Brazilian who used football to make humanity dream. And I think that's probably the best local summing up of the mood that I've come across. And there is huge pride, unbelievable pride, that the media all around the world is talking about him. They're proud of the fact that we're having this discussion now, when last night, as the European media went to press, social media on Brazil was full of the front covers of the European papers, and look at the tributes they're paying to our Pele, the greatest diplomat they ever had, the man who really put Brazil on the map. So it goes very deep, but it's not quite the visceral, emotional contact with the same depth that Argentina had with Maradona, which is partially the fact that Maradona was 20 years younger. So, there's generations there with more contact, but also this difference in personalities, I think, is a big part of it. Because, as I'm saying, some Brazilians had that kind of relationship with Garrincha, who was another one who wasn't very good at administering his life, and perhaps for that reason could be easily more easily identified with by some of the population.
Yeah, and certainly didn't mean to compare either, because it's two unique characters, and Pele in his own regard. You mentioned, though, like putting Brazil on the map. You know, when we think of football, this is such a simplistic thing to say, but there is, as you're a kid, you think of football, you think of the World Cup, you think of Brazil. Like, Brazil would have been a pretty good footballing nation anyway without Pele, but I don't think they would have been that. They wouldn't have been the Brazil that we know and think of without this one man. Is that a fair thing to say?
It's totally fair. And these little simple starting points for questions, I think, are the best starting points for questions. And let's remember just how quick this process was. We have a 9-year-old kid shocked as he watches his dad in tears listening on the radio as Brazil lose the 1950 World Cup final to Uruguay. And this 9-year-old kid says to his dad, "Leave it to me. I'm going to put that right." You fast forward just 20 years. Now, I'm old enough to know how little time 20 years is. Yeah. And you think, what has changed in those 20 years when Pele leaves the international scene after Mexico 70? Well, first of all, in 50, Brazil was still wearing white. They weren't even wearing those yellow shirts that have become so iconic. And they became iconic in 12 years. So that's number one. Number two, Pele leaves the scene and Brazil have won 3 World Cups. They hadn't won any. They weren't even top dogs in South America. And so they have become, in the course of 3 World Cups, they become the country that everyone wants to be for 4 weeks every 4 years. They're the country that wins. They're the country that wins in style. They're the country that wins in style with a smile on their face. All of that's Pele. Why wouldn't you want to be Pele? And that's in just 20 years. Yeah. No, the pace of that change is absolutely astonishing. And we come out of that into the new world. Remember, 1950, we're talking about his dad listening on the radio and Brazil playing in white. 1970.
TV.
Well, TV. A TV suddenly appeared in my house. for the 1970 World Cup. It was black and white. I was just turned 5. I was too young for it, but we were part of that global audience. And think of the wonder of those images. Glistening in the afternoon sunshine of Mexico. They've got an ethereal, otherworld quality. Even the sound of the TV and the radio commentators, it's got an ethereal quality. And at the time, a link was so often made between Brazil winning the 70 World Cup and the moon landing a few months earlier, because those images, obviously, they have an ethereal, otherworld quality. And these are two massive TV events bringing the world together. And as a result of Mexico 70, the world acquires, and very, very quickly, the habit of sitting down every 4 years to watch the World Cup. So it's Pele who helps create that habit.
Yeah.
So it's not just a case of, and his mission might have been Brazil, the mission that he explained to his dad when he was 9, but it turns into a global mission as well, because he changes geopolitics, because the World Cup is geopolitics. And I found it very fitting and appropriate, I think, that the last lucid days of his life were spent while the World Cup was happening in Qatar, because it was a chance for the great and the good gathered there in Qatar to send a message of love and appreciation to effectively the man who built their house.
Yeah, it was very interesting, actually, even at the time, kind of, because we were having this messy moment that everybody talked about as defining his legacy. And it's funny how football just seems to have this circular nature, and its own history is always so important. And for this to be happening as the messy moment was happening, I just found it really interesting. How interested, Tim, was Pele in those kind of conversations? How interested? I thought, like, he was one of those people that I think always came across as very humble in conversation, but not necessarily as a sport.
Okay, so what we just listened to, you probably would agree that that was an interesting take on what took place, how they viewed the reactions to Pele's death. Now, the thing that I want to have a discussion with you about, and that is, and I find this to be an interesting point, when Tim Vickery compared the visceral reaction to Pele's death and Maradona's death, and I thought his take was very interesting, and I will expound on that. Now, the visceral reaction to Pele's death, in comparison to Diego Maradona's, I agree with Tim Vickery. I think that the support and the outpour of support for Diego Maradona was far greater than the support and turnout for Pele in Brazil. No comparison. The support for Diego Armando Maradona in Argentina was way more visceral and way more supported. Now, the reason that he gave for that contrast in support, I thought was interesting. He was correct, but I think that he left out the real, true reason why people connected more with Diego Maradona than with Pele. So I'm just going to briefly touch on why I believe that to be the case. Diego Maradona, as everyone knows, this guy was just a people person in the sense that he reacted to let me put it plainly. Diego Maradona carried his emotions on the proverbial sleeve. He showed his emotions. He carried his emotions on his sleeve, on his shoulder, if you will. And the way he lived his life, good and bad, regular people could relate to it. He got into drugs. He was linked to the mafia. Basically, he lived his life the way a lot of people, regular people, could relate to. Now, for me, in my view, as much as I was not a fan of, I was a fan of Diego Maradona, but not a fan of his life off the pitch. I was not I think that the way he carried himself and the way he lived his life off the pitch was nothing to be desired, nothing to point to your kids and say, this is how to live your life. So I wasn't a big fan of that, but on the pitch, the guy was absolutely a phenomenon. But insofar as people relating to Diego, I can understand, why people felt like he was one of them, because that's how he lived his life. Now, when you look at the contrast, when you look at Pele's life, both players, Diego and Pele, came from humble beginnings. As a matter of fact, they came from abject poverty. So both players had that in common. Now, the way they kind of went into different directions insofar as their football and how they live their lives, it's quite a contrast. Now, one of the reasons why you can point to, or you can look at that visceral difference, that contrast with how people reacted to Pele and how people reacted to Diego, the connection that people had with Diego, the connection that people had with Pele. For Pele was incredibly ambitious. He was incredibly ambitious, and his focus was on his football. He wanted to be the best. He wanted to be the best player in the world, the greatest player in the world. So that was his focus. Now, when you look at the totality and the overall way that Pele lived his life, how he conducted himself off the pitch, one can conclude that there was this guy, this young teenager, 17 years old, being envied by white Brazilians. And the way they think of Pele, this Negro, overachieving Negro. And Pele did not care so much about what white Brazilians think of him in this way. it didn't affect him. And for black Brazilians, they also, in my view, rejected Pele in the sense that he wasn't that overt. He didn't get involved overtly in the plight and the conditions that black Brazilians were living in, the conditions that the black Brazilians lived under. Pele was not an outspoken advocate for the community. Not to say that he wasn't, but he wasn't an outspoken or an overt supporter of the cause, as it were. And then when you look at the flip side, for example, not the flip side, but when you look at how he conducted himself personally, the way he socialized in the Brazilian community. I mean, you look at his personal life, the type of women that he was drawn to and that he eventually married were all white. So when you take these dynamics into consideration, blacks rejected him for these things, and whites in Brazil envied him because of his ambition, because of his skin color, because of his race. And that did not affect this young, brilliant, prodigious, Brazilian. It didn't affect him. It didn't affect him. Or if it did, he didn't show it, because I don't know him I don't know him personally, but the way he lived his life, it didn't seem to me that it affected him. And of course, again, on the other side of things, with the black Brazilians, weren't too keen on how he lived his life personally. Don't get me wrong, they loved his football. They all do, blacks and whites alike in Brazil and worldwide. They all loved his football. The guy was great. So when Tim Vickery talks about connection, that the people in Brazil did not connect to Pele as people connected to Diego Maradona in Argentina, what Tim Vickery was hinting at was what I just explained to you. The dynamics surrounding Pele and how he lived his life personally did not connect with the people of Brazil, black and white and otherwise. And this is how I see the lack of connection. This is how my view on the issue. So just to kind of wrap this up, insofar as the worldwide coverage of Pele, insofar as the worldwide coverage, I was disappointed. I was disappointed in what I observed from the media and from the public at large, Brazil, North America, Europe, and so on, and the rest of the world. I was disappointed with how it was covered, the way the media covered the death of Pele was, in my view, an obligation. It was obligatory. It didn't strike me to be coverage of the passing of the king, the idol, the ultimate idol of football, of the sport of football. That's not the impression that I got from the coverage. So that's my take on what transpired with how the public reacted to Pele's death and the rest of the world. I mean, when I say the public, I mean the public at large. Particularly in Brazil. Brazil was very disappointing in how they remembered the life, the brilliance, the genius of the man himself, the king, Pele. So the way I'm going to end this, my commemoration of Pele and the talk about the greatest of all time. And of course, you knew I was going to touch on that. I'm sure you knew I was going to touch on that. So here is, I'm going to show you an illustration of Pele's accomplishments and comparing him with Lionel Messi, Cristiano Ronaldo, Diego Maradona. And you will see for yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, you'll see for yourselves who the true king really is. I mean, for me, it was never in doubt. But for those of you who disingenuously created this debate about who the greatest of all time is, here is the neglected facts. Take a look.
Messi has played for FC Barcelona and PSG. Cristiano Ronaldo has played for Sporting, Manchester United, Real Madrid and Juventus. Pele played for Santos FC and New York Cosmos, while Diego Maradona played for Argentinos Juniors, Boca Juniors, FC Barcelona, Napoli, Sevilla and Newell's Old Boys. Lionel Messi has played a total of 812 club games. Cristiano Ronaldo has played 933 club games. Pele played 720 club games, while Diego Maradona played 589 club games. Lionel Messi has scored 683 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo has scored 698 goals. Pele scored 680 goals, while Diego Maradona scored 311 goals. Lionel Messi has provided 282 assists. Cristiano Ronaldo has provided 198 assists. Pele provided 300 assists, while Maradona provided 208 assists. Lionel Messi has a goal per game ratio of 0.84. Cristiano has 0.75. Pele has 0.94, while Maradona has 0.53. Messi has an assist per game ratio of 0.35. Cristiano has 0.21. Pele has 0.42, while Maradona has 0.35. So Lionel Messi has an overall goal contributions per game ratio of 1.19. Cristiano has 0.96. Pele has 1.36, while Diego Maradona has 0.88 goal contributions per game. Okay, let us now compare their national careers. Lionel Messi represents Argentina national team. Ronaldo represents Portugal national team. Pele represented Brazil national team, while Maradona represented Argentina national team. Lionel Messi has played 162 games. Ronaldo has played 189 games. Pele played 92 games, while Maradona played 91 games. Lionel Messi has scored 86 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo has scored 117 goals. Pele scored 77 goals, while Maradona scored 34 goals. Lionel Messi has provided 49 assists. Ronaldo has provided 33 assists. Pele provided 43 assists, while Maradona provided 29 assists. Lionel Messi has a goal per game ratio of 0.53. Cristiano has 0.62. Pele has 0.84. Maradona has 0.37. Messi has an assist per game ratio of 0.30. Ronaldo has 0.17. Pele has 0.47, while Maradona has 0.32. So Lionel Messi has an overall goal contributions per game ratio of 0.83. Ronaldo has 0.79. Pele has 1.31, while Maradona has 0.69. Okay, let us now compare their total career statistics for both club and country in all competitions. Lionel Messi has played a total of 974 games in his entire football career. Cristiano Ronaldo has played 1,122 games. Pele played 812 games, while Maradona played 680 games. Lionel Messi has scored 769 goals. Cristiano Ronaldo has scored 815 goals. Pele scored 757 goals, while Maradona scored 345 goals. Messi has provided 331 assists. Cristiano Ronaldo has provided 231 assists. Pele provided 343 assists, while Diego Maradona provided 237 assists. So Lionel Messi has a goal per game ratio of 0.79. Cristiano Ronaldo has a goal per game ratio of 0.73. Pele has a goal per game ratio of 0.93, while Diego Maradona has a goal per game ratio of 0.51. Lionel Messi has an assist per game ratio of 0.34. Ronaldo has 0.21. Pele has 0.42, while Maradona has 0.35. So Lionel Messi has an overall goal contributions per game of 1.13. Ronaldo has 0.94. Pele has 1.35, while Maradona has 0.86. Let us now compare the trophies that they won with their teams. Lionel Messi has won 39 senior trophies, that is 2021 Copa America, 2022 Finalissima, 2008 Olympic gold medal, 3 FIFA Club World Cups, 4 UCL titles, 10 La Liga titles, 7 Copa del Rey, 3 UEFA Super Cups, 8 Supercopa de Españas, and 1 French Ligue 1. He's also won 1 junior trophy, that is Under 20 World Cup 2005. While Cristiano Ronaldo has won 34 trophies, that is Euro 2016, 2019 UEFA Nations League, 4 FIFA Club World Cups, 5 UCL titles, 3 EPL titles, 2 La Ligas, 2 Serie A's, 3 UEFA Super Cups, 1 FA Cup, 2 Copa del Rey, 1 Copa Italia, 2 League Cups, 2 Supercopa de Españas, 2 Supercopa Italianas, 1 Portuguese Super Cup, and 2 Community Shields. Pele won 37 trophies, that is 3 FIFA World Cups 1958, 1962 and 1970, 1 Taca do Atlântico, 2 Roca Cups, 3 Taca Oswaldo Cruz, 1 Bernardo O'Higgins Cup, 6 Campeonato Brasileiro Serie A's, 2 Copa Libertadores, 2 Intercontinental Cups, 1 Intercontinental Super Cup, 10 Campeonato Paulistas, 4 Torneo Rio Sao Paulo, 1 Soccer Bowl, and 1 Atlantic Conference Championship. While Maradona won 12 senior trophies, that is 1986 FIFA World Cup, 1993 Finalissima, 1 Copa del Rey, 1 Copa de la Liga, 1 Supercopa de España, 2 Serie A titles, 1 Copa Italia, 2 Supercopa Italianas, 1 UEFA Cup, and 1 Argentine Primera Division title. He also won 1 junior title, that is Under 20 World Cup 1979. Alright guys, there you have it. Which of these 4 legendary footballers?
Okay, so there it is. Those are actual statistics, facts. Now, if you're good at maths, well, you don't have to be good at maths. You know, you can have someone point out the results to you if you're not good at maths. But I suspect that you all are. And if you're not, like I said, please have someone explain it to you, because it's right there in actual tangible numbers where you can see it, you can touch it. Okay, the undisputed king, the man himself, Edson Arantes do Nascimento, Pele, simply known as Pele, the king himself. All right. So I'm going to wrap it up there. And again, before I go, just want to remind you to hit that subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Press that like button and the notification bell for new content. So until next time, people, take care.